So for cell membrane, our notes today, cell membrane and cell transport. We're going to start off with a definition of cell transport. Cell transport is the movement of particles across the cell membrane. It helps the cell to maintain homeostasis. It maintains its proper internal balance. And the type of transport we're going to have depends on what's called the concentration gradient, which is the amount of stuff in the water or the liquid that's surrounding the cell. Our cell membrane is often described as being a fluid mosaic model. Mosaic refers to a piece of artwork that's made of a bunch of little pieces. Our cell membranes are also made of a bunch of little molecules, would represent our pieces. So on the front of our foldable, we need to label some parts of our cell membrane. So this whole thing is the cell membrane. So this is a channel protein. There's a big hole, kind of like a door for things to pass through. There's some other proteins. Our cell membrane is made of a lipid bilayer. So we have two rows of lipid molecules. On the outside of the cell, we have carbohydrate chains. These chains allow cells to identify one another. The inside of the cell doesn't have any of those carbohydrate chains. All right, are we ready to go on? Everybody have the front of their flap labeled. Okay. So the cell membrane is going to contain a couple of things. We have the membrane-bound proteins, so the channels, we labeled those. What our picture was missing was the cell membrane will also at times contain cholesterol. This helps to add stability to the cell membrane, helps to keep it from falling apart. And then the carbohydrate chains that we labeled help the cell to identify one another. Very important in multicellular organisms. We need to know which cells belong to our bodies and which ones don't. Our cell membrane is also sometimes called the phospholipid bilayer. It's described as being semi-permeable. We have two definitions. Permeability is the ability of a substance to diffuse or to pass across a cell membrane. Selective permeability, same thing as semi-permeable, is allowing only certain substances to pass through the cell membrane. For the next 2 weeks between now and Thanksgiving, we'll talk a lot about how the cell controls that. When it comes to things passing through the cell membrane, we have two general categories of cellular transport. We have passive transport and active transport. Bless you. Based on the names alone, passive and active, which one do you think would require energy? Active. So when a person's active, they have lots of energy. When a person's passive, they're kind of lazy, not much energy. Same thing with the cell. So with passive transport, no energy. Things are going to move with the concentration gradient. So if we have a bunch of something in the water, say sugar, it's going to move to where there's less sugar. Or if we were to think about somebody sprays perfume or cologne. If I were standing up here and sprayed perfume, people in the front row would smell it first. But those molecules would diffuse, and eventually people on the back row would be able to smell it. That's moving with the concentration gradient from where we have a high amount to a low amount. Some examples, and we will talk in more detail about these examples tomorrow, include diffusion, which is the simplest form. So my perfume example. Osmosis is when water molecules move around. And then a special type called facilitated diffusion. Requires one of those membrane proteins, but still no energy. on the active side, anytime we see the letters ATP, that refers to energy. So we already said active transport's going to need energy. ATP is the energy in the cell. So active transport requires energy, it requires ATP. So if I give you a picture on a test, you're going to look for those letters. That's going to tell you if it's passive or active. This is movement against the concentration gradient. So moving something from a low concentration to a high concentration. I sprayed that bottle of perfume. It would take a lot of energy to try to collect all those molecules and put them back in the perfume bottle. So things move from low to high. The cells go through a couple of processes. There's endocytosis, where they try to bring things into the cell that they're lacking. Exocytosis is when they push things out, so if they have a buildup of waste inside the cell.